What do you say to parents who say like art's just a craft in school and it's just leisure time?
Well, I've addressed that question when I taught high school. I've had parents in parent-teacher meetings with that attitude. And my response to them was that what their student is actually being exposed to and what your son or daughter is actually learning and being exposed to is what I said earlier. It's a wider appreciation for the world around them. It's an ability to understand the context in which they exist in the world around them. It's developing their ability to problem solve, conceptualize. Also, it's providing them an opportunity to develop the ability to discover who they are in a way that doesn't have boundaries. Art really is forcing individuals to stop and study and look at their environment and not assume what's around them. Again, I said it earlier, it's critical thinking. That's what it's about.
Is there any similarities in teaching math and art history?
Absolutely. It's all about thinking, analyzing, looking, sensing, seeing relationships. It's just that the sign system that you use to describe those relationships is different. In math, it's numbers. Calculus is very visual. The more, quote, more advanced the calculus, in one sense, it's easier for artists to learn. Or I would write an equation on the board at the Episcopal school, and I'd put in there, and I would draw it. I remember drawing a tree with a brown trunk and green leaves, and drawing roots on it, and then putting these little squares on the roots. And I work out the equation. I say, okay, what's it? And they'd say, what's that? I said, that's tree. That's the cube root of tree.
Did they get it?
Yeah.
And the key point, the other key point is this, is that art is about creativity. It's about creating something. It's about creating something new. And when you understand that you can actually create something new, that there's a possible other answer, there's a possible another way, then that filters into everything. It's very empowering. And I think it's particularly empowering to young children, because all of a sudden, maybe they're not successful writing, maybe they're not successful in math or science, but they can make and build things. And when you can make and build things and create something new and different, you know, it begins to translate into what you think you can do with the world. You know, your imagination is stirred, and you go, okay, well, what if the world could be this way? So you get into social imagination. How could the world be a better place? So to me, there's a real strong connection between creativity and you know, social justice, basically. And to me, it's a very natural sort of thing, because you're both. It's a human endeavor. Both of them are.
It's a way in which they can express ideas and feelings that are not being driven by, say, a standardized test.
Probably engaged in creative activity was outside of the art classroom. Places like we played out in the woods, and we created games and made things from stuff you would find out in the woods. So we were always using our imagination, pretending, climbing, playing in the creek, and those were the places where I used my imagination. I remember when I was in 6th grade, now imagine how awkward this would have been, but I remember a friend of mine and we came up with this whole imaginary little culture of these little people that had these little, almost little round bodies and these legs. And so we would draw these little things, we call them grapes. And so we had this whole culture of these almost like little cartoon-like people that would come alive, and we would imagine them. So we'd have drawings and drawings and drawings, and I wish I still had them, of these grapes doing all these different things. And we would imagine that these things were real. And we drove everybody nuts with these drawings. And I don't know whether my mom has them, but I have to go see if I can find them. But when you're in the 6th grade, that was probably very nerdy and things you would do. So it wasn't like it made us really popular to do these things. But, you know, again, it's those things, though, that to me stir the imagination, you know, as opposed to making your 15th jack-o'-lantern out of construction paper.
I always look back at my mother sending me to that art center to make prints. She could have enrolled me in drawing classes. She could have done a lot of things. She could have sent me to the public pool to take swimming lessons. But she sent me to that art center. I grew up observing a brother going through a lot of issues with drugs. And for me, art at that point, when I was in high school, even junior high, actually, art was really a way in which I was able to remove myself and also be removed from the activities that were happening within the family. When I went to high school, I was very fortunate that I had experiences and teachers that allowed me an escape from that environment and a shelter from that environment. It was a place that if I hadn't experienced it, and it may not have just been that place, the larger context here, it was the exposure to art. If I couldn't have been exposed to art at that time, I probably would not have graduated high school and gone to college. The teachers I had allowed and facilitated and nurtured a creative spirit that allowed me to get through those times, allowed me a window into things that I was able to do.
There wasn't, raised in small town Ohio, there wasn't much in terms of the arts available. I said, you know, I want to be an art historian. Although I didn't know art historians existed yet, I just knew I wanted to have something to do with art. So I was actively learning and making and playing and working and going down to the creeks to be not at home as much as possible. The idea, I couldn't wait to get away from home. And not because my parents were bad, they weren't very interesting, but they were okay parents, but I simply wanted to be on my own. And so I started working as soon as I could so I could do that. I was working in a factory from midnight till 8 and taking classes during the day and the evening.